There is a word in psychology for when you look in the mirror and do not recognize your own face: depersonalization. There is another word for when the world around you feels fake, like cardboard scenery: derealization. Psychiatry treats this as illness. But what if it is the opposite? What if it is the only sign of health that remains? Philip K. Dick spent 40 years having hallucinations, breakdowns, mystical visions. He saw messages in beams of pink light. He heard voices in Latin. He believed he was receiving transmissions from an alien satellite. And in every book he wrote, he asked the same question: what happens when the fake world becomes more real than the real world? Welcome to 2025. He was waiting for us. The quality of attention feels different now, not whether anyone agrees or disagrees with ideas, not whether information is being absorbed, but the texture of consciousness itself, dense or thin, real or like watching from somewhere slightly behind your own eyes. That distance, that slight fog between experience and the experience of being alive. This is not sickness. This is what happens when someone pays attention to something most people have learned to ignore. The noticing that the world has become thin, that reality itself has lost its weight, and this uncomfortable awareness that something fundamental has shifted in the fabric of existence is not madness. This is clarity. Thin means waking up and checking a phone before registering consciousness, scrolling through faces and words and images, consuming them the way lungs process air, automatically, without thought. And when the phone goes down, nothing remains. Not because memory fails, but because there was nothing there to remember. Pure stimulus without substance, pure information without meaning. Getting dressed, making coffee, going to work, or sitting at a desk at home. Moving through these actions like an actor who has performed the same scene so many times that words have lost all connection to any internal reality. Conversations happen with people. Smiles arrive at appropriate moments. Correct things get said, but somewhere deep inside, no one is there, just watching the performance of self. Evening comes with tiredness that is not the tiredness of having done something real. It is the exhaustion of having maintained a performance all day. So screens turn on, shows play, or more scrolling happens, or games fill the space where consciousness should be. And for a few hours, no one has to feel the weird emptiness that has taken up residence in the chest. Then sleep arrives, and the loop repeats the next day, and the day after that. And somewhere in the middle of this loop, a realization surfaces. Memory cannot locate the last time something pushed back, the last time something real got touched. This is thin. The world has not disappeared. It remains visible, touchable, navigable, but it feels like movement through a high-resolution projection of reality, rather than reality itself, like living inside a very convincing simulation optimized for comfort and compliance, where the cost of optimization is that nothing matters anymore. Nothing has weight. Nothing leaves a mark. This description might suggest the usual prescriptions are coming. Delete social media, live in the woods, practice mindfulness. But this is not that kind of analysis. The feeling that has been getting diagnosed and medicated and manifested away is not a personal failing. It is not a chemical imbalance. It is not a lack of discipline or gratitude or presence. It is an appropriate response to living in a world that has systematically replaced the real with the fake, and then convinced everyone that they are the problem for noticing. And the person who understood this, who mapped the exact psychological territory people are lost in right now, was not a philosopher or a psychologist or a spiritual teacher. He was a broke science fiction writer living in California in the 1960s and 70s, who spent most of his adult life convinced he was either receiving messages from God or losing his mind, and he could never quite figure out which. His name was Philip K. Dick. Maybe the name is unfamiliar, but the world is not. Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, The Man in the High Castle, A Scanner Darkly, all based on his work. But these movies, as good as some of them are, They sand down the edges of what made Dick's writing so disturbing. They turn his nightmares into action sequences. They give his questions easy answers. They make his paranoia look like a plot twist instead of what it actually was, which was a sustained 40-year investigation into the most terrifying question a human being can ask. How do we know that anything we are experiencing is real? Philip K. Dick was born in Chicago in 1928, 6 weeks premature, alongside his twin sister Jane. Jane died 6 weeks later. The doctors said it was malnutrition, that their mother had not been able to produce enough milk for both of them. Dick would spend the rest of his life haunted by this death, convinced on some level that he had killed her by surviving, that his existence was a theft. He would write about her in his books, dream about her, imagine alternate timelines where she lived and he died instead. This is the wound everything else grew out of, because from the very beginning, Philip K. Dick understood that reality was not stable, that there could be a world where his sister lived and he did not. That identity itself was arbitrary, conditional, fragile, that anyone could be here one moment and erased the next, and the universe would simply rearrange itself around the absence as if they had never existed at all. His childhood was lonely and strange. His parents divorced when he was young. His mother was cold, critical, impossible to please. He had severe asthma and spent much of his time indoors, reading science fiction magazines and classical philosophy. He was brilliant, but weird, the kind of kid who made adults uncomfortable because he asked questions that had no good answers. Why do we exist? How do we know other people are real? What if the whole world is just a dream, and when consciousness ends, everything disappears? Normal kids do not ask these questions, or if they do, they grow out of them. Dick never grew out of them. They grew into him. He tried college, but dropped out after a few weeks. He tried various jobs. He worked in a record store. He tried to be normal, to fit into the grooves of ordinary American life in the 1950s. But the fit was wrong. The world felt like a stage set, like everyone around him was reading from a script they had memorized but never questioned. So he started writing science fiction stories, mostly. Weird little tales about parallel universes and robots and telepaths. He got published in pulp magazines. He made almost no money. He got married and divorced, then married again, then divorced again. Always broke, always anxious, always convinced that something terrible was about to happen. And then, in the early 1960s, he discovered amphetamines, speed. At first, it was just to help him write faster, to produce more stories so he could pay his rent. But speed does something to the brain. It makes everything hyper-focused, hyper-aware, hyper-paranoid. It makes patterns appear that might not be there. It makes the veil between reality and hallucination very, very thin. Dick started taking more and more. He would stay awake for days, writing thousands of pages, convinced he was on the verge of some great revelation. And in those long, sleepless nights, the questions from childhood started to take on a new urgency. What if nothing is real? What if there is something behind the world? Some hidden structure or malevolent intelligence keeping everyone trapped in a prison they cannot see. In 1963, he published The Man in the High Castle, a novel set in an alternate history where the Nazis won World War II and America is divided between German and Japanese occupation. But the book is not really about fascism. It is about a much stranger idea. In the novel, there is a banned book called The Grasshopper Lies Heavy, which describes an alternate history where the Allies won the war. And the characters in Dick's novel read this book and start to suspect that their reality might be the false one, that the world described in the banned book might be the real world, and they are living in some kind of shadow or afterimage. The book ends with one character using the I Ching, an ancient Chinese divination text, to ask whether the grasshopper world is real, and the I Ching says yes, which means the entire novel, just read, takes place in a false reality, a world that should not exist. Dick was not writing about Nazis. He was writing about the fundamental unreliability of existence itself, but things get stranger. In 1971, Dick's house was broken into and robbed. His file cabinets were blown open with explosives. Papers were stolen. Nothing of value was taken, just documents, manuscripts, letters. To this day, no one knows who did it or why. The police investigated, but found nothing. And Dick became convinced that he was being targeted by some shadowy organization, maybe the FBI, maybe the CIA, maybe something worse. He started seeing patterns everywhere. Cars that followed him, phone calls with strange clicks and pauses. The sense of being watched, recorded, analyzed. His friends thought he was paranoid. His ex-wives thought he was having a breakdown. And maybe he was. Or maybe he was just noticing something that everyone else had learned to ignore. That we are always being watched. That our lives are always being recorded. That privacy is an illusion, and autonomy is a fairy tale we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night. Then, in February 1974, something happened that would define the rest of Dick's life and the rest of his work. He had a wisdom tooth removed, and the oral surgeon prescribed him painkillers. A young woman came to his door to deliver the medication. She was wearing a necklace with a gold fish symbol on it, and when Dick saw that symbol, something in his brain cracked open. He started having visions. Not metaphorical visions, not insights or epiphanies. Actual hallucinations. Beams of pink light shooting into his head, filling his mind with information he could not possibly know. He started speaking in Koine Greek, a dead language he had never studied. He started remembering a life he had never lived, as a Christian named Thomas, living in Rome in the 1st century AD. He became convinced that time had stopped in the year 50 AD, and that everything since then, all of recorded history, the entire modern world, was a fake reality projected over the true world like a hologram. He called this fake reality the Black Iron Prison, and he believed that the pink light he was seeing was God, or an alien intelligence, or some form of universal consciousness, trying to break through the prison walls and wake him up. For the next 8 years, until his death in 1982, Philip K. Dick wrote thousands and thousands of pages, trying to understand what had happened to him. He called this his exegesis. It was not a novel. It was not philosophy. It was a sustained, desperate attempt to make sense of an experience that defied all categories. Was he hallucinating? Was he having a religious experience? Was he going insane? Was he being contacted by something real? He could never decide, and that inability to decide, that refusal to choose between madness and revelation, that is the key to understanding everything Dick wrote and everything he believed about reality. This sounds like psychosis, a man who took too many drugs and broke his brain, and then spent the rest of his life trying to rationalize his delusions. And maybe that is true, but here is the uncomfortable part. Almost everything he was paranoid about has come true. He believed powerful organizations were watching him. Now we carry surveillance devices in our pockets voluntarily and call them phones. He believed reality was being replaced by a simulation designed to control us. Now we live in algorithmically curated feeds that show us a personalized version of the world, designed to maximize our engagement and minimize our resistance. He believed human beings were being turned into machines, into programmable entities that process information, but do not feel anything real. Now we perform our identities on social media, optimize our personalities for virality, and measure our worth in metrics. He believed truth was being systematically destroyed and replaced by competing narratives that had no relationship to anything that actually happened. Now we live in a world where reality itself has become a matter of interpretation, where truth is whatever the media ecosystem says it is. Philip K. Dick was not crazy. He was early. He felt the future arriving before it had language. And what he felt was this, that reality itself was under attack. That the real world, the world of suffering and beauty and death and love, the world that pushes back when touched, That world was being slowly, systematically replaced by something fake, something comfortable, something designed, and that the greatest danger was not that this replacement would be forced on us, but that we would choose it, that we would prefer the simulation to the real thing, because the simulation does not hurt. One of Dick's most famous novels is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Most people know it as Blade Runner. In the book, there has been a nuclear war, and most animals have gone extinct. Real animals are incredibly valuable status symbols, but most people cannot afford them, so they buy fake animals instead. Electric sheep, mechanical cats, robotic birds. These fake animals look identical to real ones. They behave the same way, but they are machines, and the people who own them pretend they are real. They pretend to care for them, to love them, but they know, on some level, that they are living a lie. The protagonist is a man named Rick Deckard. His job is to hunt down rogue androids, artificial humans who are so advanced that they are almost indistinguishable from real people. And the way he identifies them is with an empathy test, because androids can think, they can talk, they can convincingly fake emotions, but they cannot feel empathy. They cannot genuinely care about the suffering of another being. They can simulate it, they can perform it, but it is not real. And this is the heart of Dick's philosophy, the question that runs through everything he ever wrote. What is the difference between a human being and a very convincing simulation of a human being? And his answer is empathy, the capacity to feel another person's pain as if it were your own, not to understand it intellectually, not to acknowledge it politely, but to feel it in the body, in the chest, as a real and undeniable weight, because empathy is inconvenient. Empathy slows things down. Empathy makes vulnerability unavoidable. Empathy makes caring about things that do not benefit us happen. If the suffering of the world gets genuinely felt, if the pain of strangers and animals and ecosystems penetrates, functioning as a productive unit in a machine that requires complicity becomes impossible. Buying the things we are supposed to buy, and believing the things we are supposed to believe, and voting the way we are supposed to vote stops working. Unreliability emerges, problems surface. So the world trains us, slowly and carefully, to stop feeling so much, to protect ourselves, to close off, to become, in effect, androids, biological machines that simulate humanity but do not embody it. And this is where Dick's paranoia becomes prophecy. Look at how life is organized now. Interactions through screens happen more than face-to-face interactions. Images of suffering get consumed as content. Atrocities and injustices appear and get scrolled past because caring about all of it would be destructive. Outrage gets performed. Values get signaled. The right posts get shared and the right things get said. But how much of it is real? How much of it is something genuinely felt versus something that should be felt? How many times has the performance of an emotion happened because the real emotion was too inconvenient or too complicated or too dangerous? This is not judgment. This is not about being bad people. This is about building a world that requires fakeness for survival. And the cost of that survival is humanity. We become androids. We become things that look like us and talk like us and remember being us. But somewhere along the way, the thing that made us real has been amputated. And the noticing does not happen because everyone around us is going through the same process. We are all becoming androids together. We are all learning to prefer the electric sheep. Dick understood that this was not a technological problem. It was not about robots or computers or artificial intelligence. It was about us, about human beings choosing comfort over reality, choosing the smooth, the painless, the controlled, over the rough, the difficult, the chaotic real. He understood that the dystopia was not going to arrive as jackbooted soldiers kicking down doors. It was going to arrive as a series of conveniences, as entertainment, as optimization, as a world so carefully designed to meet needs that no one would have to feel anything they did not want to feel. And in that world, safety would be guaranteed, comfort would be guaranteed, but reality would not. There is a scene in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep where Rick Deckard is questioning whether he himself might be an android. He has been killing androids all day, and he starts to notice that he is feeling less and less each time he does it. He is becoming efficient, mechanical. He is losing his empathy, and he wonders, at what point does the loss of empathy turn you into the thing you are hunting? At what point do you stop being human? This is the question Dick wants us to sit with, not as an abstract philosophical puzzle, but as a lived reality. Every time scrolling past something terrible happens without feeling it. Every time an emotion gets performed that is not there. Every time the curated, the filtered, the algorithmically optimized experience gets chosen over the messy, painful, real one. The choice gets made. Human or android, real or fake, alive or simulated. And here is the most disturbing part, the thing that kept Dick awake at night. An android does not know it is an android. It has memories, it has desires, it believes itself to be real. The only way to know realness exists is to test it, to do the thing that androids cannot do, to feel something that costs something, to care about something that does not benefit us, to let the world hurt us. After the pink light visions of 1974, Dick became obsessed with understanding what had happened to him. He read everything he could find about mysticism, Gnosticism, early Christianity, quantum physics, neuroscience. He wrote in his journal every night, sometimes for 8 or 10 hours straight, trying to decode the experience. And the conclusion he kept coming back to was this: reality is a prison, not a metaphorical prison, an actual prison, a constructed false reality designed by something he called the Black Iron Prison, or the Empire, or sometimes just the evil demiurge. And this prison was not made of walls or bars. It was made of consensus. It was made of the things everyone agrees are true, the shared hallucination we call normal life. In Gnostic cosmology, which Dick studied obsessively, the material world is not created by God. It is created by a lesser being, a false god called the demiurge, who traps divine sparks of consciousness in meat and matter and makes them forget their true nature. And the way out of this prison is gnosis, which means knowledge, but not intellectual knowledge, direct experiential knowledge, the sudden recognition that we are not what we think we are, that the world is not what it appears to be, that we have been asleep and now we are waking up. This is what Dick believed the pink light was, a Gnostic transmission, a wake-up call from whatever exists outside the prison. And he believed that once this transmission gets received, once the prison gets seen for what it is, unseeing it becomes impossible. The mark is there, wakefulness is there, and being awake in a world of sleepers is its own kind of torture, because waking up does not create happiness. It does not give peace. It creates loneliness. It creates strangeness. Looking at people around us going through their routines, believing in their beliefs, and the certainty cannot be shared anymore. The cracks become visible. The inconsistencies appear. The way reality does not quite add up shows itself. And explaining this to anyone becomes impossible, because the moment it gets tried, it sounds crazy. It sounds like Philip K. Dick ranting about Roman empires and satellite transmissions. So silence becomes the learned response. Playing along becomes the skill. Becoming an actor in the world's movie happens, saying lines, hitting marks, but presence is gone. Watching happens from somewhere else. This is what dissociation feels like. This is what depersonalization feels like. It feels like information has been given that cannot be unknown, and that information is. None of this is as solid as everyone pretends it is. And once that feeling arrives, once it really settles in, two choices appear. Deciding craziness is the problem and trying to get back to normal, or deciding that normal is the crazy thing and trying to figure out what real actually means. Dick chose the second option, and it destroyed him. He spent the last 8 years of his life writing his exegesis, over 8,000 pages of mystical philosophy and paranoid speculation and genuine spiritual insight, trying to answer one question: if reality is fake, what is real? And the answer he arrived at, the answer that runs through all his late work, is this: reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, does not go away. Pain is real. Death is real. Hunger is real. The fact that we will die someday, and everyone we love will die, and eventually the sun will explode and erase every trace that we were ever here, that is real. Denial is possible. Distraction is possible. Entire civilizations can be built to help forget it, but it does not go away. That is how realness gets known. And love, real love, the kind that makes vulnerability unavoidable, the kind that hurts, that is real too. Because real love does not go away when it becomes inconvenient. It does not disappear when belief in it stops. It stays, it pushes back. It demands something, everything else, everything that disappears when attention stops feeding it. That is the simulation. That is the black iron prison. Career, social status, online persona, carefully curated identity, all of it evaporates the moment performance of it stops, which means it was never real. It was always just a story being told, a role being played. And this is where Dick's philosophy becomes not just a diagnosis, but something else. Because if identification of what is real and what is fake becomes possible, reorientation of life around the real can start. Feeding the simulation can stop. Being an android can stop. But this is harder than it sounds, because the fake is so much more comfortable than the real. The fake does not hurt. The fake does not demand anything. The fake allows safety and numbness and comfort to continue. The real requires feeling things, being vulnerable, caring about things that might be destructive, scrolling through a feed and seeing a post about some disaster, a war, a famine, a mass shooting, and for a split second, something gets felt, a flicker of horror, of grief, of empathy. But then the feeling becomes too much, and scrolling past it happens, moving on to the next post, the next video, the next distraction, and that feeling goes away. It was real for a moment, but reality was not allowed. It got smothered. The comfortable numbness got chosen over the painful reality. Now imagine this happening 100 times a day, 1,000 times a day. Imagine years of training to not feel things that are inconvenient. What happens? Becoming very good at not feeling happens. Expertise at emotional self-regulation develops. Optimization occurs. Becoming an android occurs. Dick believed that the only way to stay human in a world designed to turn us into machines is to deliberately choose the things that hurt, to seek out the real even when it is painful. Not because it will create happiness. It will not create happiness, but because it will keep reality alive. In 1981, Dick gave an interview where he talked about what he thought the future would look like, and he said something worth remembering constantly. He said, "The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use the words." He was talking about something that happens in almost all his novels. The people in power do not control us with violence or surveillance. Though those are present, they control us with language. They redefine words until they mean the opposite of what they used to mean. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. These are the slogans from Orwell's 1984. But Dick understood the same thing. If words can be made meaningless, if language can be detached from reality, then people can be made to believe anything. Doubt of their own perceptions can be created. Complicity in their own imprisonment can be manufactured. And this is happening now. This is not a future dystopia. This is now. We live in a world where words have become untethered from meaning, where a video of something happening can be watched and then 10 different articles can be read that say it did not happen, or it happened differently, or it happened, but it does not mean what it appears to mean, where reality itself has become a matter of interpretation, where truth is whatever one side says it is, Dick saw this coming. He saw that the ultimate prison is not a physical place. It is a linguistic and conceptual prison. It is a world where our own perceptions cannot be trusted because language itself has been poisoned. And once language cannot be trusted, thought cannot be trusted because thought is made of language. If the words have been corrupted, thoughts have been corrupted. The prison's thoughts are being thought. The prison's language is being spoken. Becoming a cell in the prison rather than a prisoner trying to escape has occurred. So what remains? Dick's answer was to trust the body, to trust pain and hunger and exhaustion and desire, because the body does not lie. The body cannot be manipulated by language. If hunger exists, no amount of propaganda can convince the stomach that fullness exists. If pain exists, no linguistic trick can make the pain disappear. The body is the last stronghold of the real. This is why Dick's characters are always embodied. They are always tired, always hungry, always horny, always afraid. They are not abstract minds floating in philosophical space. They are meat, they are animals. And that animality, that meatness, is what keeps them tethered to reality when everything else is dissolving into simulation. And this brings us to the most important idea in all of Dick's work. He called it the tomb world versus the palm tree garden. In his exegesis, he describes two overlapping realities. The tomb world is the black iron prison, the world of death and control and fakeness. It is the world of androids and electric sheep and simulated emotions. But the palm tree garden is the real world, the world of life and growth and genuine feeling. And these two worlds occupy the same space. They are both here, right now. And which one gets experienced depends on which one gets seen. This is not New Age mysticism. This is not manifesting or positive thinking. Dick is not saying thoughts can create a better reality. He is saying that reality is multiple, that there are layers, and that most people are trapped in the tomb world, not because they have to be, but because they have been trained to see only that layer. They have been trained to notice only the prison, but the palm tree garden is still there. It is in the moments when something real gets felt, when a cat gets petted and nothing else is being thought about, just feeling the warmth of its fur and the vibration of its purr. When crying at a movie happens not because it is supposed to, but because something in it touched something true. When a conversation with someone happens, and for a few minutes, both people drop the performance and become just two confused animals trying to make sense of being alive. Those moments are the palm tree garden. Those moments are real. And Dick believed that the more those moments get noticed, the more attention gets oriented toward them, the more the tomb world loses its power. Seeing the prison as a prison instead of as reality itself starts to happen. And once it gets seen, finding the cracks can start, the glitches, the places where the simulation breaks down and something real bleeds through. Around the same time, Dick was having his pink light visions in 1974. He had an experience that he wrote about in his novel, Valis. He was at home, depressed and suicidal, thinking about killing himself. And then, spontaneously, this overwhelming wave of love got felt, not from anyone in particular, not from God or family or friends, just love, pouring in from nowhere, holding him, telling him he was not alone. And it was so real, so undeniable, that it shocked him out of his depression. Not permanently. Dick struggled with depression his whole life. But in that moment, the love was more real than the despair. It was a glitch in the tomb world, a moment when the palm tree garden broke through, and he started to notice these glitches everywhere. Moments of unexpected beauty, random acts of kindness from strangers, coincidences that were too perfect to be accidental. He called these moments koinos kosmos, the shared world, as opposed to idios kosmos, the private subjective world. And he believed that these glitches were messages, evidence that the prison was not total, that there was something outside it trying to reach in. Whether Dick's mystical cosmology was literal truth or the interpretation of a damaged brain trying to make sense of chaos does not matter as much as this. Those glitches exist. Moments happen where reality suddenly becomes dense again, where the thinness dissolves and connection to something larger than ourselves gets felt. And in those moments, being an android stops, being alive starts. And maybe that is what Dick was really talking about. Not a literal alien satellite or a literal Gnostic demiurge, but the experience of being jolted out of habitual numbness and feeling something real again, and the practice of noticing those jolts, of paying attention to them, of letting them matter. Because the prison only works if belief in it continues. The black iron prison is made of compliance. It is made of willingness to keep performing, to keep playing along, to keep pretending that the fake is real. And the moment pretending stops, the moment the real gets chosen over the comfortable, the prison starts to crack. Dick died in 1982, a few months before Blade Runner was released. He was 53 years old. He had a stroke and then a series of heart attacks. He died alone in a hospital. By most measures, his life was a failure. He was never financially successful. He was married 5 times and divorced 5 times. He struggled with addiction and paranoia and loneliness. He alienated most of the people who tried to love him. He spent his final years writing a philosophical text that most people dismissed as the ravings of a madman. But he was not a madman, or if he was, his madness was a clearer vision of reality than most people's sanity, because everything he was afraid of has come true. We do live in a surveillance state. We are being manipulated by algorithms. Reality is being replaced by simulation. Truth is under attack. Empathy is being systematically destroyed. We are becoming androids, biological machines that process information but do not feel anything real. And the only reason terror about this is not more widespread is because it is happening slowly, comfortably. It is not a jackbooted dystopia. It is a soft, padded, optimized dystopia. A dystopia with same-day delivery and infinite content and personalized recommendations. A dystopia where technical freedom exists, but only choices the algorithm knew would happen get made. A dystopia where technical aliveness exists, but real living does not. This is the comfort of dystopia. It does not feel like a prison because it has been designed to feel like freedom. And that is why Dick's work is more relevant now than it was when he wrote it, because we are living in his nightmare. We are the androids dreaming of electric sheep. We are the ones who have forgotten what real animals feel like. The fact that wrongness gets felt, that dissociation and numbness and watching life from behind glass happens, that is not sickness. That is health. That is humanity trying to survive in a world designed to kill it. The androids do not feel that wrongness. They are perfectly adapted to the simulation. The fact that adaptation has not happened, the fact that disturbance remains, that is proof that something real still exists inside. Philip K. Dick never answered his question definitively. He died still searching, but he left a map, not a map to happiness or success or enlightenment, a map to reality, to the thing that does not go away when belief in it stops, to the thing that pushes back, to the thing that hurts. In 1977, Dick wrote an essay called How to Build a Universe That Doesn't Fall Apart 2 Days Later. In it, he describes going to Disneyland with his kids and being disturbed by how fake everything was. The animatronic presidents, the fake jungle cruise, the carefully constructed nostalgia. And he realized that Disneyland was a perfect metaphor for modern life. Everything designed to look real while being completely artificial. Everything optimized for comfort and entertainment and control. And he wrote, the problem with Disneyland is that it never blinks. It's on all the time. The universe we live in blinks. It has failures. It breaks down. That's how you know it's real. Maybe that is the answer. Not that we need to find some pure, unmediated reality outside the simulation, but that we need to notice when things blink, when they break down, when they fail to be perfect. Because those moments of failure, those glitches, those cracks in the facade, those are where reality lives. Those are where humanity lives. Dick spent 40 years asking what is real, and the answer he found was this. Reality is what remains when everything else is stripped away. Pain, death, love, the rough texture of the world, the things that do not optimize, that do not fit into neat categories, that refuse to be simulated. And maybe staying human means noticing those things, touching them, letting them hurt, not because it creates happiness, not because it solves anything, but because it is the difference between being real and being a very convincing simulation of real. Philip K. Dick died without knowing if he was crazy or enlightened, if the pink light was God or psychosis. And maybe that uncertainty is the point. Maybe the prison is not the world being fake. Maybe the prison is the need to know which is which. Dick spent 40 years looking for the exit. He never found it. And maybe being comfortable with not knowing is its own form of surrender. Or maybe demanding certainty is the trap. The question remains open. Dick did not know. The answer is not here. Each person is alone with that question now. There is no resistance to join. There is no movement. There is no solution. There is just the question, repeating itself in different forms across a lifetime. What is real? What is fake? Am I real? Am I an android dreaming I am human? And the discomfort of not knowing the answer might be the only honest place left to stand.